now? All right. Hi, everyone. Welcome to my session, and thanks for joining my session on hard lettering. I am Dr. Syed Rahman, working at Macquarie University here at Sydney. And I am passionate about this methodology because I have used it in my PhD, and I have multiple papers currently in the pipeline or publication where I have used this paper. Can't give more details at this point. What the setup I have is that in front of me, I have my camera and all of you. And on my right-hand side, I have another screen where I have my PowerPoint shared there. And that's why you will see me looking right, looking left again. And that's why it's not like I'm taking my eyes off you, but I'm going to look at my screen. And I'm expecting to complete this presentation within 1 hour. And within that, I'll try to get you in to do some activities. But if I do need to stay long for another 5-10 minutes, it will be fine. And as I was explaining to Edmund, if you do need to stop me at any point, please unmute yourself and ask question. And I'll try to answer your question at that point and then move forward. If I am speaking too fast at any point that I become very hard to understand, also please stop me. The session is for you, not for me, and I'll repeat that section. Okay. So I'm going to share my screen, and I will test again and again to make sure you can hear me clearly, or you can see my screen properly. Okay, fastest, can you see my screen? Should be a PowerPoint presentation there.
Yes, it's there.
It's there?
Not in a presentation mode.
All right, and is it clear? Can you read it clearly?
Yes.
All right, beautiful. So as I was saying that it's a qualitative data collection method using online hard lettering technique presented by me this year. And by the way, I'm not a purely qualitative researcher. I'm more on the quantitative side, but I travel the both world. I mean, starting from data collection, raw data collection, and then scale development and quantitative. So I present myself as a scale developer or measurement model developer. And those who are familiar with this process, it involves data collection and then item development or measurement item or survey item development, then going through a rigorous process and then developing the scale. So that's why I have experience in this both types. And as I was saying, I work at Macquarie University. And if you'd like to know more about me and if you'd like to contact me, you can connect with me in LinkedIn, and you can also contact me and I'll be happy to communicate with you. And I try to respond to anyone very quickly. So if you search for my name, you will find me, and please try to communicate with me if you need to. So what we're going to cover in this session is that an overview of means and chain theory. Then I'm going to talk about overview of MSC or means and chain driven laddering process, then examples of MSC laddering questions, and then it will go to online hard laddering, then MSC laddering outcomes. So quite a bit to go through, and you can see that the presentation topic is online hard lettering, and it's actually sitting in number 4, not like I'm starting with that. It's because most of us know that the theory and the method goes in hand. And what I'm going to present today is that where does this process comes from? Because lettering can be done in a different way, in many different ways. What we are going to talk about in this session specifically is means and chain theory driven lettering process. So there are research areas or research questions where this method is more appropriate than any other method. So what I'm trying to say is that lettering process, means and chain theory lettering process is not appropriate, or it's not a generalized qualitative data collection process that you can use in all purposes. It's mostly usable where your research area is customer experience. For example, you are trying to understand customer experience, or how or what drives customer experience in particular context. And to explain that process, I have developed an hypothetical example, and I tried to give it a tourism flavor. So there can be error there, so don't worry about that. But just let's see if it can if it makes sense. So the scenario that I have in front of you is that COVID-19 has impacted the cruise ship industry heavily. Who doesn't know that? We all know that. And consumers have lost confidence in the companies or the cruise operators to provide safe environment. So we are just concerned that is a cruise safe, and if it's not safe, I'm not going to purchase a ticket for my cruise. As the cruise shipping companies begin to restart their activities, which they're doing now, they have to run campaigns, I mean marketing campaigns, focusing on passenger safety to enhance customer or consumer confidence. We agree. As part of those campaigns, a cruise operator wants to develop a survey that passengers will complete during or after a trip to indicate their level of agreement with the higher safety standard across various aspects of their trip. They also want to estimate the impact of higher investment in safety measures on customers' intention to travel with them again and influence their friends and family to cruise with them. There you go, a topic for a potential paper in future, and a couple of research questions there. Now, what I have in the next slide is that a cruise ship has many aspects, we know that, and touch points such as onboarding facilities, food services, cleaning, then activities area, transportation, entertainment, etc., etc. Therefore, different customers may have different opinions or perception on what is unsafe and how safety aspects can be enhanced. Therefore, developing the survey instrument, or for example, scale, is not a straightforward task. It's not like we just put some items there and people say agree, disagree, and we do something. We have to go through a rigorous process. And another line is, moreover, this is the managerial implication. Moreover, government agencies such as Australian Border Force here in Australia, Tourism Australia, Tourism New Zealand may want to administer that survey as well to understand the level of safety compliance in the cruise ship from the customer's perspective. Therefore, the survey instrument need to be generalized across different cruise ship companies. It's just not one cruise ship company. Now the question, if you are the researcher in charge of the survey instrument development process, how are you going to do this? This is the research context. So here you can see that we're talking about the area of customer experience, specifically your tourist experience or customer's experience in cruise ship. And we're looking for attributes that customer perceive are key component of their safety perception. So we need to explore those attributes. We need to identify how those attributes taps onto other relevant perceptions in our memory. And then we probably need to identify which attributes are most important and then invest more in those attributes. And also, we're going to develop a survey which is going to regularly monitor us how we are performing across those attributes. So if you are in a situation where your research question is like this, in tourism or in, say, for example, retailing or anything, then you might consider means and chain theory, first of all, and then you may consider the laddering process for your data collection. To give you an example, this morning I went for a quick drive and there was a news on the radio about ethical consumption. So what they're saying is that in the news is that people are more concerned about ethical consumption. They don't want brand to procure their materials from a country where there is slavery going on or unethical activities going on, and so on. And what they're trying to do is that promote those ethical touch points or ethical points to the buyers or to us, to the consumers. So what they're saying is that they have identified 41 or I think 42 attributes that customer care about when they think about ethical consumption. And straight away, I was thinking, oh, I have a presentation this evening and I need to give this example. And probably they have identified those attributes using a research process like that. And there is actually a paper on that by Thurston Gruber on ethical consumption, 2009 paper. So first of all, that's why I'm going to discuss what is means and chain theory, what this theory talks about, then how this theory helps us with the research process or this methodology. So the means and chain theory says that we have means to reach to our end or end state in our psychology. So if you look at this pyramid, it is, if you start from here, for example, point 2, it's saying that we need tangible features or an inherent attributes to which the consumer allocate importance. So here we're talking about, in terms of that cruise ship context, different safety attributes or touch point that are important for customers in that context. Then theory saying that those attributes are important to customer because of their functional benefit, and the functional benefits are then important to the customer for psychosocial or emotional benefits. So they're just saying that there is a linkage between why do we care about something, and then all of these are driven by our highest value. For example, if I have a daughter and I might be very concerned about my family safety. So if I am going to a cruise, and I'm concerned or I'm looking for, is that a safe ship, is it a safe company? Then if someone probes me that, okay, why is it so important to you to identify or find out why this ship is so safe, why this company is so safe, then at some point I will say, look, in the end, I am concerned about the safety of my daughter. I just don't want her to be sick. I don't want my family to be sick. So you might find that my safety concern could be driven by the highest value, which is the care for my family or the family safety. So I'm saying, I developed this context here because safety, we are all worried about safety, but whatever your research area is, whatever your research context is, our decisions and our choice for attributes are driven by our highest values. So at the qualitative end of the scale development or measurement development or exploration of attribute stage, we do need to identify how those functional attributes, which companies can actually provide, link to our functional benefit, then emotional benefit, and then that links to the higher value. Because if we can understand those linkage, we can then better understand our customer. That's what we call insights about our customers' preferences. And then we can develop our communications or marketing communication accordingly. Say, for example, if I want to communicate with someone that my cruise ship is safe and I know there will be family going there, I actually not only have to focus on the safety feature that I have implemented, I probably have to put 2 kids in my advertisement and show them, yay, it's safe for kids. And that's how it actually helps us. The insight helps us to put it together so that it taps onto customers' perception. So that's what this theoretical theory stands for, basically. And then I was basically explaining this, that one of the most important aspects of marketing is understanding why consumers make decisions. We don't know that answer, then we can't go anywhere. And I was basically explaining this slide. Now, the means and chain theory itself is actually a combination of theory. There are a lot of psychological or strong psychological theories operating together in this theory. So at the bottom, you can see we have these means on the left-hand side that go into the end. And the means that what we care, what are the features that we care about, and what we're trying to understand, why do we care about that? Because the more we can explore about the right-hand side or the linkage, the better we can understand how customers' perceptions are operating in that particular context. And I'm not going to discuss too much about these individual theories, but if you are really interested and if you are going to develop a study based on this theory, you must read about this theory. And the first of all, you need to read about schema theory. Then you will read about categorization theory, that how do we categorize our perceptions, then customers' perceived value, and then how it links to our personal values. So that's for another session, but it's just a bit more information for future. Next is that the theory development using means and change. So remember that at the beginning of this session, I was talking about skill development, concept development, or the holy grail of our literature or article development is that we want to develop construct. We want to develop that how this construct or dimension link up with each other and how it explores the phenomenon in the market, isn't it? And most of us declare that as the theory development, that we have developed something new. We have developed some new relationship which hasn't been explored before. So this is saying is that if you are in that journey where we would like to understand the relationship between attributes and the consequences in some in a particular context, we recommend that you start with means and chain theory, but that's just a theoretical discussion. You then need to collect data, isn't it? And for that, if your research is underpinned by means and chain theory, then the recommendation is that you collect your qualitative data using means and chain laddering technique. So now we are going into the laddering part of it. So far, it was theory. So another point is that if your research is not underpinned by means and chain theory, then probably you are not going to use means and chain laddering technique. Now, those who are really good at qualitative research, you would know that there is standard laddering process. It just means that you go from one step to another step. What is important here is that when you use the word means and chain laddering technique, it means how we actually ask those questions. What are the words that we use in those questions? And we don't break those rules that this is how the word should be. And then the next sentence's word should be that way, because that's what the theory dictates, that you need to ask these questions in this sequence, in this way, and you just change some words here and there to fit your context. So that's what the specific. So again, I'm reaffirming is that if your study is not underpinned by means and chain theory, and then you use laddering, then you are probably using other types of laddering, which is just meaning sequential interview technique. It is not means and chain. So don't make that mistake. Just say I'm using means and chain laddering technique, where it is not actually that. So just be careful, because I've actually seen paper which made that mistake and had to reject that one because it's just nowhere near what they wanted to do or supposed to do. Okay, now there are two types of laddering technique. And the first one, we call it so-called, I should use the word so-called soft laddering technique. It doesn't mean that it's soft or it's easy. It is actually the difficult one. And then we are going to talk about the hard laddering technique. So a bit of a history about the soft laddering technique or the face-to-face laddering technique and hard laddering is that this theory this process gained popularity in 1980s, 1990s, when good American companies like Kellogg's and Ford, they started to develop heavy expenditure advertisement. And there's a lot of investment in marketing and proper research going on by the gurus of marketing researchers in the market, still in the market now, like Rahman and Durabruel. And they like did face-to-face interviews, and there wasn't not much, like there is no online tools at this point for data collection, isn't it? No Qualtrics at that point for online data collection, or Google at that point for Google Form. So they had to interview people face to face over a coffee or lunch, and then they go through the process. So that was the standard laddering process. Now, if you go to the literature, you will find that in around 2009, the online lettering process started to take hold. And the benefit is that it gave you more reach. For example, within USA, you have 50 states. So if you're trying to collect data using the lettering process from many states, you have to travel, and it's an expensive process. So companies started to find that now there is something called online form or questionnaire I can develop and collect data from everywhere and then analyze it at one point. It's a cost-saving approach. So at that point, researchers like Tristan Gruber, they started to develop this process called an hard lettering process, and they adopted the same questionnaire, same process, but started to use the online process. And then poor people like me, who found that, wow, this is interesting. And we are in the area of customer experience and customer engagement now. What can I do to improve this process even further? So what I did, I used this process in my thesis, and then I currently have, I was saying that multiple papers in multiple journals, is in almost at the last stage of review. If that published, you will find that we have made some improvements to the existing process as well. So here in this presentation, I will share some tips, and there will be an example that I will show you, and you will be actually step through that process to learn more about it. But there's still room for improvement, and you can do it. Another thing is that I am currently taking a micro credential for Optus here in Sydney, and we teach like one batch in every 3 to 4 months, and they have a big initiative about customer experience. And my session there, I take 3 sessions, expanded version of these, and my job there is to teach them about lettering, and particularly online hard lettering. And I can tell you they're using it in practice, and they are finding it extremely valuable. So it is tool which is being used heavily by practitioners currently, and I'm just giving you one example here in Australia. Now let's go to the process first. That what is the process? Just before we go there, about means and chain theory and the good old school lettering theory. If you are interested in that, okay, what type of paper and who has used this good theory in their like seminal researches, you might know about SARFQual. So SARFQual is developed using means and chain theory. So that was the traditional lettering process, or the traditional process. And then if you go to ESQual study by Rahman as well, you will find the use of means and chain theory. So that's a good paper to read about means and chain theory. Also, more recently, the renewal of this e-service quality, it's a meta-analysis study by Marcus Blood. If you read this paper, you just search for e-service quality development of hierarchical model. There is a nice section about means and chain theory, and it will explain you how they have developed this model and tested this model. So these two are just an example of what can you read about, or which article should you read about a good example of means and chain theory until my paper comes out. Had to promote. Now the means and chain lettering process. Let's get into it. So what does it do? So at this point, I'm still not talking about the hard or soft, the difference between them. So soft is that face-to-face manual process, and the hard means that there will be hard question and it's all online. So that's the difference. But still, I'm going to discuss about the broader laddering process, maybe C laddering process. What do we do? So if your research involves exploring attribute and theorizing a framework underpinned by Bayesian chain theory, you should consider laddering, explain that. And this has been lauded as the laddering theory as well. So then we have the Bayesian chain theory, and the process itself, the laddering process, has been called by some people as the laddering theory as well. So there's a lot of theory going on here. Just be careful about what we are talking about, but the more you read, the more less confused you will be. So the laddering process is a method for building value chains. So this is important, value chains through a hybrid of qualitative and quantitative research process. So what do we mean by value chain? So remember that when I was showing you this pyramid, I was saying that the perceptions, they're interlinked, and ultimately everything is linked together, the attributes, the benefit, the emotion, and the higher value. And that's what we mean by those chain or the linkage. And if we want to identify that, that's why we need to use this approach. The process helps researchers develop a hierarchical value map, or HVM, another new terminology, which demonstrate the link between attribute, consequence, and values. And there are online tools available such as Ladderux, which can help you to develop. And the reason I'm sharing this one is that there are very expensive tools available for developing HVM, but in my researches, I use Ladderux because in this one you could actually develop 1 or 2 models for free, and I found them very reliable and so easy to use and maneuver. That's the recommendation. By the way, I will share some recommendation at the end, so don't worry too much about writing it down at this stage. And the tool does not determine the best link. The goodness of HVM depends on the quality of coding and tagging done by the researcher. So this is just a warning that, look, it is not going to solve our life's problem. It is as good as the data we collect and how we code it. Now, on the next page, I do have an example from a study. So this is by, see that, Thurston Gruber. So that's the name I was using. He's a pioneer in this area. And this is what a HVM looks like. So what it's saying is that there are some attributes down below. So they obviously collected data using the laddering process. And the purpose of collecting data using a laddering process and then coding for a HVM is to develop an image like that, or illustration like that, or HVM like that. And this one is about the ethical clothing consumption long time ago. And it is saying that when customers think about ethical clothing consumption, these are the attributes that they care about. And they care about these attributes for these reasons. And ultimately, these are the personal values that drives their choices and decisions. And when you develop hierarchical value map using a proper tool, you will end up with a thick or thin linkage like that. And that informs you how important those linkages are, because that many times people have, or respondents have mentioned that this is important to me because of that. And that's an example of this chain, that the product attribute links to functional consequence, psychological consequence, and personal values. So that's how we just travel upward. You will find paper where this is upside down, like they present the attribute on top, then you will see arrows going down, and then the values later. Don't worry about or get confused about the presentation. You just follow the breadcrumb from attributes to the personal values. That's what we care about. Once again, I mentioned it before, I mentioned it again. Why do we do that? Why do we go through so much pain to show this one? Because this is actually a somewhat or soft representation of our memory nodes, the perceptions that we have in our memory about a particular context, in this case, ethical consumption. And this is what I mean by consumer insights, by data-driven insight in some cases, or interview data-driven insights, is that our insight is telling us that people want to look good when they want to wear an ethical consumer. So what's the importance of that information that I want to look good with my ethical product? Because that can inform you, or that informs you that in your marketing communication, in your social media communication, in your TV advertisement, in your news or anywhere, this is probably a concept that you should talk about because it reflects or relates to some people's perception. And if it reflects or relates to some people's perception, they will remember you. And that's what brands want to do, isn't it? They want to be remembered by someone, isn't it? That's the game that we are in. So that's why understanding these concepts, the constructs and relationships are important. And the thicker the relationship, the more important it is. So this was developed by using an old software or long time ago. I'm going to share one of the model that I developed using Ladder UX. So this is developed using Ladder UX. It's quite huge, this model, don't worry about this. And I'm just showing you that you can end up with something like that. And this kind of tool, it took months, say years. And then you could use this type of tools to actually clear it out. For example, if I say I want, at this point it's saying cutoff means 0. That means I want to see all linkage. You want to see, for example, linkage which has happened more than one time. So if you do that, then this one updates automatically, not automatically, the tool, sorry. And you could use this to see that the model is becoming much more clear or changing shape. So you can play it in a different ways to see how your value map is. And we like managed to get there. For example, we enter data. Don't try to get into the details at this point. I'm just telling you where it takes you to. You develop your attributes, consequences, you code all of your data, and then you can actually analyze your data and it will prepare the value map for you. So just an example where, what can you do with Ladder UX, because I already mentioned this too. Okay, so enough about hierarchical value map. I had to explain this, otherwise it will all feel like why we're doing this. Now, how to develop laddering interview question. Here comes the actual workshop. So the MEC helps to understand important attributes, the link between attributes, and MEC evolved. So we talked about these theories already. Now research using MEC involved laddering theory, which is the means and chain. This is just a recap slide. And then there are two types of laddering, soft laddering and hard laddering. We all know that by now. So the next question is, what are those laddering questions? How does it actually work? So the way it works is like this. So this is a screenshot from another article, and I have linked to this article at the end of this presentation, and there is an online what's it called, step through process that you will go through. So what happens is that we first ask our respondents that what are the 3 or 5 or 2 most important attributes that they care about in that context. For example, safety in cruise ship. So first we collect information about 3 to 5 important attributes to a customer, to a respondent. Then we probe about each of those attributes. So we ask them that, could you please explain to us what you mean by, for example, attribute 2, and why is that important to you? And then we ask that question again, that you have just said that, why you have said that, and why it is important to you. So what's happening is that, first of all, we collect the attributes or important features. Then we ask them why it is important to them. Laddering theory says or identified that when we ask about why, for the first time we ask about why something is important to them, they usually talk about the functional benefit. that this is important to me for this type of benefit. This is why it is important to me. If I then ask again that you just say that it is important to you for this, why did you say that? Why it is important to you? People then take a step back and then ask themselves, why did they say that? Why it is actually important to me? And then they actually start to talk about why emotionally it is important to them, or we call it the psychosocial importance. And that information is extremely important, because if you go across the customer experience and engagement related literature now, you will find everybody is talking about emotional. We need to engage with customer emotionally. Wow, you're going to do that. You can't do that if you don't know about why it is, or what type of information that they care about, what type of emotion it can trigger. So that's why we need to identify that linkage. And then if I ask again that why that emotion, or why it is important to you for the third time, they might actually ask or tell you about the most important secret is that what is that ultimate value that drives that decision making. So that then actually can help you to build that value chain. So that is the basic concept. It is very simple. Where it is hard is actually to get that information, because what we're doing, why it is laddering or layer of laddering, is that like most of the time, if you ask someone about why something is important to them, they will be able to give you an answer. If you then ask them why what you said is important to them, they have to actually take a pause and think, okay, actually, why is it then important to them? Some people may not be actually able to give you that answer because they think so simply. They just don't store that information or process that information. So we have this processing power, like we are heterogenetic and we have different processing power. Some people think very critically or make their informed decisions rationally or highly rationally. Some people are, okay, I make my decision. Thank you very much. Why does it matter so much? So that's what the challenge with this process is, that you might not actually find in-depth data in the second layer of laddering or even in the third layer of laddering. So that's why we try to collect a lot of data and then try to have some sort of a perception or some sort of this hierarchical value map, that at the aggregated level, what is actually happening, what type of picture can we paint. Okay, so that is the basic process. Now what I have done is actually that I have actually developed an online questionnaire that we can go through, and I will keep it open for another week that you can play around to see that how you could actually develop an online online laddering or hard laddering questionnaire. So I'm going to share it on my screen. So you actually add a barcode there, you can scan it with your phone. I'm going to share this link in the chat box so that you can save it for later. So here you go. Here is the link for you. So I recommend that you save it somewhere so that you can go to that link in the next 7 days and see how it works. But I'm going to step through it so that everybody can see what it is. So it should open there. So if you go to the link, it starts with this, where I say that I have developed it based on the procedure explained here, which is the paper, which is the screenshot that I have shared. And I'm saying that it hasn't been peer reviewed, so there will be tons of error. Don't worry about it. It's just an example for this workshop. Now, first of all, if you start it, then you start with your country. So I'll go through country. It doesn't matter how you start. And then what I'm saying is that the first step should be include screening question and filters in this section. So those who are familiar with online questionnaire development, you will have some filtering question. My recommendation at this stage is that try to have as less questions as possible at the starting of an online laddering process, or even face-to-face laddering process, because this research methodology, data collection process puts a lot of pressure on consumers, like processing and cognitive load, because you will ask them to think deep and extract information from deep down, and it does make them tired. And you will see that those questions are at the later part of the lettering. So if you put a lot of questions at the beginning of the process, it's going to make those people or respondent tired to start with. So my recommendation is that try to have the beginning of your survey as simple as possible. And to give you an example of simplicity, I'll go next, is that I developed again another context, is that you provide your research context here. If you want to go through it, I have developed something about safe customer experience in omnichannel retailing. In my research, I actually add a video explainer there. So there are people who doesn't want to read. Reading itself is a strenuous work. So who wants to read in this world? So I put a video in there. So if you have the time, people can actually click on there. In 30 seconds, I will be able to describe what this research is about and then make the life easier for our respondents. I'm giving you these tips because if you do follow this, if you do adopt this method in your research, these small things makes a lot of difference. And I have done a lot of pre-test to see what actually worked best. And I'm just giving you like summary of a lot of pre-tests here. And I'm not going to read word by word because you have access to it. You can go through it later. And if I go next, and then here, this is important. Add a screening question to explore the respondent recent memory, e.g. 3 or 6 months. This is important. We need to activate customers' memory. We need to activate their recent experiences. Depending on research question, the recency can vary. For example, going for a cruise ship or going for a yearly holiday is a yearly affair, isn't it? So if that is the context, you might ask your consumer or respondent to think about something within the past 14 months or 1.5 years, for example, or the last time they had a holiday, something like that. In a retail purchase situation, we're buying almost every week, isn't it? If not every 2-3 days. So it is quite fresh in our memory. Why freshness is important? Because we need to understand what their recent memory. So that is important in this methodology. So here, and then I go forward, and once again, still a bit more information. All we're doing, this blue lines are tips for you. We need to activate their memory because we just asked them about their experience. Now, okay, where that experience occur? For example, if I say, Kohl's, for example, a retailer, then how long have you been shopping there? There, and then what products you buy? Everything, for example. I'm just stepping through it. And then here is the first research question. For example, your example research workshop, please think about your recent purchase experience with a retailer. Think about the important safety features of different channels, media, physical and digital. It's just a research context. You put your question in there, and here is the main lettering questions. We try not to use it, or we try to keep it as intact as possible. What are the 3 most important safety features, blah, 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 to keep customers safe? So if you do adopt this process, all you will be doing, you will be changing the context here. You will change the safety with something else in your research context, and then you will change this part as well. What you would not change is that the way you have asked the question, what are the 3 most important? Now, what is also important here is that how many attributes are you going to ask about? Most of the time, we researchers are very greedy, isn't it? And we can ask that, okay, there is one respondent, I'm going to probably pay them $5 or $10 for their responses. And I'm going to ask them about 5 most important attributes. You better talk. Have you thought about that? If you ask them about 5 important attributes, you have to ask them 15 times why this is important. They will be dead by the time they finish the interview, and the quality of data will be extremely poor. I have tested it and I learned the hard way. So I found that 3 is the optimum number. There are cases where I used 5, where I did not actually go through the full loading of laddering because I was only interested in attributes for one component. So you can modify to your need, but if you are going to the full scope of laddering, then I suggest please, pretty please, do not go beyond 3. It will kill the both ends, yourself and the respondents. Okay, so the way you have to ask, what is the first important attribute, the second important attribute, and the third important attribute? You will find that there are papers where they're asking people, just giving them one box and saying that list 3 attributes and then asking them to rank them and so on. All those activities, all those thinking adds to cognitive load. And as I was mentioning, try to reduce it as much as possible because the game is yet to start. So you need to just ask them very simply, what is the first important attribute, second, third? They will rank by themselves. Most of the people will respond the most important attribute first, isn't it? Now, here is a tip from Syed Rahman. Add this line. Please explain your opinion. In my research, what I found, if I simply ask this, I get few words. If I add this, I start to receive more words. It's just hard truth, and I found it through my pre-test, and this is a tips for you, and you will find it in my paper if it gets published, is that we do explain those methodological improvement that this does. And how did I identify this or develop this one is that when I first administered this one in my pre-test, I just had this part. I found that most of them are not saying that many words. How can I improve? How can I get more out of them? I tried few things and I found this is the best option that worked. So this is how you feature. I'm just going to type something, otherwise it is not going to let me go through, or I'm just going to say, this is better, my feature, because it has importance. Second, okay, so you go next. Then don't forget to thank them, because yeah, you need to butter them to get the data out of them. Otherwise, people will not type a lot. They need to type. And here it is important. You explain them the laddering process, and you ask them that you tell them that you are extremely sorry that you have to ask the question again and again for methodological reason. It is not you who is at fault. It is the damn theory which is actually telling you to do it in this way. So please don't kill the messenger and just try to give me the information that I need. We need to do that. And also in here, in my study, I actually add a small video, politely explain them, this is why I need that. And please, if give us good data, otherwise I can't complete my study, something like that. And here I'm saying include a short video. It's a good idea. It works good for me. And I actually track how many times people actually viewed that video. And I found that almost 100% time people have actually watched this video. And don't try to make them too long. Keep those as short as possible. One of my research, I did not develop the video because I was administering the survey in USA. So I actually recruited a native English speaker so that it's more, it's better presented. Let's put it that way, better than my accent. So you could use all those techniques to make it more personalized for everyone. Then you go to let's start. So see that here is saying that you have to ask the questions exactly this way. That's what I recommend. You can copy it. You have stated that one of the most important feature, attribute or characteristics of a retailer should be. So you will just change here based on your context, and you see that I have piped that information. See that I typed before my first attribute, and then I asked that, could you please explain to us what you mean by this and why exactly this is important to you. Once again, when we talk about means and chain theory laddering technique, what the theory or the laddering theory is offering you is this wording for your question, because research found that if you do ask the questions in this way, we tend to get more information from people, from the respondents. So that's why you just change here and there, but don't make holistic changes to this one. And don't bold everything, because then people's focus goes into different places. Only focus on what you focus. And piping this information from previous step to this step is extremely important, because by the time we step through, we will forget what we say. Another tips, you will find that I have said that one of the most important feature, I did not say the most important feature, because I'm not affirming or confirming that this is the most confirming more important feature. It might introduce bias, so keep it fluid, and you just say that you just mention one of these. So don't say that, don't try to say that this is the most important for the first important feature, because they will then pay more attention to writing there and then not write too much about the third or the second one. So here you type something. I'll just step forward quickly. And then, and why is that? See that I'm asking that question again. And why is what you indicated in the previous test box important to you? Once again, add this word, please explain. In my experience, most of the paper that you will find currently in the market or in Google Scholar, they only have this part, not this one. This is my recommendation. It goes a long way to get more out of your respondents. And see that the piped information is coming from the previous step. Always inform them what's happening. Another important thing you might have already noticed that I'm asking one question at a time. I'm not showing them many things at one page. Do that. Go through this step-by-step process. Take them through the journey, because if you have too many information there, or the respondents thought processing will try to think too many, or their focus will shift. You don't want that. You just want them to focus on one specific question that you have in front of them. So again, I'm just I better just copy it. Oopsie, see that? That's what I wanted to do. I found that to have a reasonable answer, you should have at least 10 character, and I built into, I added those logic into the survey, so that respondents are somewhat forced to or cautioned to write a bit more. So something more, let's see if that works. Okay, yeah, that works, more than 10 characters. So I'm just showing you that what are the few things that you need to add here and there to develop a very good online hard lettering technique. Now, the third time we're asking this question, can you think of any further reason for why is what you indicated in the previous text box of relevance to you? Please explain. And then we explain what they have said in the previous text box, something more. Now, there is one thing. In the second, in the previous text box, you found that there is a check-in that someone must type 10 words. So what I do in my research or my data collection is that I force the first response, the second one, but the ultimate personal values, but the last stage, I don't force. So I'm quite sure if I click next, it will actually allow me to go forward. The reason I do that, remember that I explained that sometimes we don't think very in a complex way, and we may not actually have the answer there. We do not want to make people crazy at this stage, that you have to type something, otherwise you can't go. What they will do, they'll simply close the browser and go home, or just go for a coffee. So we give them a bit of a relax here. And I found that by the, like, they get scared in the first, oh, okay, I have to kind of type 10 and I will try to answer something. Otherwise, people will just say that, look, I just can't really thought about anything. So excuse me. So, yep, see, wait. And then again, politely thank them. So then you will repeat this process for the second one. You see that? You remind them what is the one. So you get the idea. I will fly through this process, no more explanation. And then we step to the third one. And this is important, the survey completion one, so that people know that how long it is going for. And then here is that another area that if you need to add any additional question that you need to ask for research purpose, you ask here after this stage, once you get the actual data, the real data that you need. But once again here, keep it as short as possible because people will be fatigued at this stage. Don't make it a big thesis here that you're asking 10 questions because people will be tired, mentally drained at this stage. So we go to the last section and then you have your demographic questions. And for example, if I just go through demographic questions and if I just say something, there is something for you at the end. What is mine? Let's put it that way. Submit. Oopsie. 4 character. See, date of birth should be 4 character. Cool. Submit answer. Now, this is something for all of you. That's what I included, is that these are the references and some of the recommendations that I was sharing in my, what's that called, presentation. So I recommend that you, when you have some time, you try to step through it, see the process, and if you can come to the last stage, you will find these recommendations. Just copy paste it, and then you will have all the information. And in future, if my paper gets published, it will be here after them that, okay, how we have revived this process or improved this process and so on, but not at this stage. And if you have any feedback, you can provide it there. If not, it doesn't matter. And then you submit your answer and there's just a completion code. So that's what it is in terms of how the process runs. Then quickly in 5 minutes, I will show you how do we actually do the analysis. Now, the data analysis process is not actually different for soft laddering or online hard laddering. It's same as we go through the theming process, the categorization process, and then we follow the process, as simple as that. So those who are not familiar with means and chain theory, coding, and the hierarchical value map development, after the data collection, say, for example, you will end up with data like this from a respondent. So this is actually a real data from a customer in the USA. So this is about, I think, safety measures in retailing. So I did ask the question. And then as their first attribute, that person said that making sure everything is clean and organized, a dirty place is not pleasant to shop in, and I like knowing where I can find things in a timely manner. So it has to be organized, and they don't like dirty places. So basically the place needs to be clean, and that is the common theme in terms of safety in retailing. So what do we do with this information? This is the first attribute. So we ask the question, remember that we ask the question, why it is important to you? Then we ask it again, and then we ask it again. So let's see what this customer has or respondent has said. So the important, if there is dust or outdated merchandise on the shelf, it makes you wonder how concerned they are about the customer safety and health. So obviously that is their functional benefit, their health, their safety. So it makes them concerned. Then we ask them why it is important to them. And he or she said that I would rather not buy food poisoning off a shelf or from a freezer, especially with having children. So now here we start to see that these concerns are driven by parents. And then, thank you, and why it is important. Keeping children healthy is always a mother's #1 priority. You see that at the ultimate level, the concern has gone from personal to a global level. It's about all mothers, it's about all things. It's not about the retailing anymore. And I would not want to buy a product containing possible illness. That's what they say. Now, I deliberately picked this example because it's simple to read, simple to understand, simple to relate to. In your context, you will find much more complex data. and you do have to develop those chains and prepare those themes based on the data that you receive. This is just a very simple, straightforward example of how customer can, a respondent can respond from why it is important functionally, psychologically, and then ultimately for personal values. And then I have this example. Let's analyze potential value chain: clean store, personal safety, concern, emotion, fear, and then family safety. So in your paper, you will theoretically justify that these are the construct, these are the different type of values and emotion, and that's why these are important to me. And then what is the potential outcome? Potential outcome could be customer will be emotionally happy, which is there. And then there could be share of wallet, because the customer said, I would not buy. What is the opposite of I would not buy? I would buy. So if I do offer a clean store, then they would buy more from me, and that will have impact on the higher share of wallet. And potential strategic decision out of this information, that could be invest in developing a brand image that represent safety, or specifically cleanliness, use family safety as a theme when developing marketing communication. And that's what all this information, once again, very simplistic, straightforward answer, but your research will give you more complex challenges. What else do I have? Recap, important attributes, yada, yada, yada. There are two types of lettering, soft and hard lettering. And there are also some tips. You could consider two-step interview process, where the first 20 to 30 minutes lettering interviews to collect the data for key information. Then if you need to probe more question, you go back and ask more question. And this one we call hybrid of hard lettering and soft lettering. So we use the hard lettering or online lettering to get the bulk of the information. Then we bother them for more information. But many good professor will say that no, don't do it, because if you do it, then you actually have to identify the respondents, and that could be a no-no in some cases to control for bias. So although it's a tips, it depends, but there is also a way to do it without actually identifying the respondent if you can manage it. But this is just tips that you can follow. And then this slide ends with some recommendations, which you have. These are all the references that help me learn. And you have this information available at the end of that exercise that you can complete. That is all for me. Lots of talking, and any question from anyone at this stage?
Just a very quick question. Thank you so much, Dr. Syed. It was very interesting one. The first question that we asked, what does it mean to you and why is it important? Did you try to separate them, or we are only interested in the why element?
Can you please repeat the first part of question? It just dropped off.
The first question, we say, what does it mean for you, or what this means for you, and why is it important for the first feature?
Okay, so why, like we could actually simply ask is that why it is important to you. I found that it's in a Reynolds, he recommended like asking in two different ways. It's just worked better if we word that way, because in one hand, we need to make it very personal. For example, like why it is important to you, what does it mean to you, then again, why it is important to you. So throughout last decades of research and questionnaire, we found that, or the researchers in this area found that if we ask this way, then we kind of get more information. It's like adding my please explain information. And that's why I was saying that, of course, when you will adopt this technique, you will improve here and there, but you need to try the existing wording that the current A-star papers are recommending. And then you have to judge yourself how good those wordings are, and they're there for a reason, theoretical reason.
Thank you so much. But I can see great that you said it's very great for practical implication.
Yeah.
That people are interested to know that even in their campaigns, what's the really the benefit that people are looking for and what do they really care about.
Yep.
So that was a great one.
Yep.
Thank you.
And I don't know if we have any digital marketer here or who teaches digital marketing. Okay, that's my past life. We often suffer from low content idea, isn't it? Oh my goodness, every week I need to pump out 14 different content. Where the next idea coming from? This sometimes you focus on the functional attributes, benefits, sometimes emotional, sometimes the ultimate values, tons of ideas for you. But where are you going to get that list of ideas which can be helpful for you? Run a research like that and you will find some ideas.
Yeah, exactly. And these are what people really care about.
Yep.
Thank you so much. As you mentioned, people are asking for PowerPoint slides.
Yep. In terms of the PowerPoint slide, here comes my teaching side of it, bit of hard nut, is that you will have the copy of this. I mean, the link to this video. Somewhere will suggest. I really want you to have a go at that example, because there are tips there which will be more helpful, because that is the idea. And what's most important for anyone is to actually read or go through those literature, and that will give you more information in a better way than I have said. And what you could start with is, what's that called? Where is that this example? The literature, this one, where you will find that link, Hellenberger, and that paper is really well written. So I strongly recommend that you quickly have a look at those resources, and they will be helpful. And if you contact me, obviously, I try to help you with your research, or anyway, if you can engage. Okay, I'll stop sharing. Let's see if we have any other question. If not, everybody can go for their dinner or lunch, whichever the time zone is. Edmund, any question at this stage? You've been quiet.
Hey, no, I'm good. I'm good. No, I just have my my kids beside me, so I just have to be very quiet.
All right. Okay. Okay, I can hear my one is walking outside the door.
Yeah, no, it's really good. It's really good. Yeah, yeah. I mean, this one definitely one good way to kind of like to qualify the quantified.
Yep, yep. And that's why we call it the in many papers you will find that they're saying is that semi-qualitative study or semi-quantitative study. They go both way, because this, I mean, it's highly popular in American marketing agencies, because they use it all the time. You start with this, and all the Ford ads, the GM ads that are coming, the features, which feature, how they're going to focus on. If they don't justify to their clients that this is why I am going to focus this on this multi-million-dollar ad, they use this feature. And the what's that called? The Ladderux. The professor who developed that one, it was her PhD project, by the way. I communicated with her a long time ago. And she works in the gaming area. I think she's based in Norway. And what they look at is that this child's psychology and or the gamer psychology, what's important to them. And anytime this gaming company, they're coming in, how their games are performing, what type of feature they need, continuously they are using this method. And she developed that online tool just to facilitate her team worldwide. And that's why it's kind of free. I think I paid $5 just to use the pro version for one project, and she made it very, and a lot of people don't actually. I actually found that wherever I talk about means and change, they say, oh, it's very difficult to develop hierarchical value map. They just don't know about that tool, but now you know, it's very easy to use.
There you
Question.
go. Well done. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
No worries. Question? There was a hands up from someone. No.
Oh, good. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Any question from anyone?
Yeah, I was asking one thing, sir.
Yep, sure.
Whether this technique is how much suitable for retrospective interviews. Like if I had a customer who has experienced the phenomena some 6 months ago, so how it would be? Is it justified to use this?
You mean that how to just like how to ask them like 6 months ago or 12 months ago? Is that the question? Or the
Yeah,
question is about
no,
how many respondents?
no. My question is: this technique is suitable? Is it suitable for retrospective interviews, especially where customer we are asking questions are based on experience, which is some 6 months, 8 months ago, and now I am testing that using this technique. Is it okay?
If I understand you correctly, what we're trying to do, we are trying to understand customers' perception or experiences. And
Yes,
to
yes.
develop perception, it has to happen in the past. How far ago, how quick ago, how short time ago, that would depend on the context. So, say for example, to give you an example, my daughter is now 7 years old. So if someone now survey me about what was your experience during childbirth at that particular hospital, that's a 7 years old experience, isn't it? Memory. But it is so strong and so important. I still remember every single second. So I will be able to talk about it, isn't it? So that's one case. But if someone comes to me and say, in your year 7, on that day in that class, that teacher, you remember? How much can you tell about that teacher? It could be very vague because I am in my 40s now. 7th grade year, a long time ago, and I would not remember. So the experience has to happen because for perception to develop, we need to have that experience. But what's critical is how you set that, how far back they are going to think about that experience. That need to be clearly thought out depending on the context. For example, when I was delivering I was discussing, I think I mentioned that if it was a holiday or cruise, probably an yearly affair. But now in Australia, if I ask about cruise, it's probably 2 years ago, isn't it? Because there wasn't any cruise in the last 18 months. And I don't know when will be the next one. No one knows probably. So we just need to be very careful about what it is. And I think I should explain another thing is that how many respondents are you going to interview for this process? I missed that discussion, I think. Most of the time, if you go to a paper, they will say, I collected data from 20 to 30 and I reached the saturation, yada, yada, yada. That's a typical explanation, isn't it? My paper, two of my paper, which is kindly publication, one I have 74 and another one, it is 52 samples, respondents for hard laddering. And truly, at that point, I could get to what's that called, saturation level. Because remember that every time we're asking about 3 perception tops, you can go down to 2 depending on how complex the situation is or context is. So I would say you cannot predetermine how many respondents are you going to collect data from. Your data need to lead the way. So be very careful when you read literature on when it says that I reach saturation after that, the case can be different for you. And the reason why online laddering or hard laddering is beneficial is that you need to collect more data. It's very easy. Just go online, collect another set of data. The boundary is not a problem. So that's another recommendation. Does it help you or answer your question?
Yeah. I got it, sir. Thank you. Thanks very much.
No worries. There's some question in the chat. See if I need to answer any. How to suitable for? Okay, answer that. Okay, the question. Okay, that's very good. Thank you. transformative experience. So code and analyze 5 interviews, then go to next 5. Yeah, that's the one. So what we say is that, let me explain how I have written it in my paper. So what I did in one is that I first collected, say, I think minimum 20, because under any circumstance, you are not going anywhere less than 20. Analyze that and then develop your first set of themes. Any supervisor will tell you that. And then you collect the next 5 and then see if there is a new theme and then hop every 5 responses. That's why I proceeded. So 20 was my initial set, and then every 5 analyze, add, revise, move forward, and then yeah, that's how we move forward.
Thank
Okay.
you very much, Dr. Syed. And a very, very interesting technique. And you went into details. So thank you so much for sharing that with us.
My pleasure. And yeah, if yeah, you decide when to stop.
Yes, no, it's already, we are already 15, no, 20 minutes more. So yeah, thank you everyone for joining the session, and please reach out if you've got any question. We will be back on 2nd of November for the close-up session and also for the pitch day for the proposals. So thanks everyone.
All righty. Thank you very much. See you all again sometime, somewhere.
Bye. See you
Bye.
guys.